It is a big problem indeed, helping us hash it all out. Joining me now, Aaron Gibbs, the portfolio manager for S&P Investment Services, Scott Martin, CIO of Kingsview Asset Management, and Keith Fitzgerald, the chief strategist for Money Map Press. All right, let's first talk about Boeing, because initially, Aaron, the Dow was off 200 points. Boeing's still a substantial loss, and it's coming back. But what do you make of this? Because here's my concern as a Boeing shareholder. I don't think they responded quickly or strongly enough to the Lion Air crash. I just think they were sort of defensive. Well, it's not our problem. And you know, not just for Boeing, but at some point, airplane passengers are going to be like, I don't know. I mean, you know, what's going on here?
Yeah, they really blamed it on maintenance on the first crash. And now, obviously, with the second one, they're going to have to address, particularly with these foreign airline carriers, what's going on. Clearly, the training isn't happening. And is this going to be a bigger issue? So I think the first time we were pretty willing, we liked the stock and we were willing to hold on to it because it did feel like it was a one-off. But now, like, this is questionable about, is this more systematic? Is this going to create bigger issues?
You're holding it for now, though.
We're holding it for now. It's still a very strong company, but this is definitely raises concerns.
To point out how strong it is, 3 months ago, fiscal 19 earnings were $18. Now, Scott, they're $20. Fiscal 20 was less than 21. Now it's almost $23.50. I mean, $23.50. I mean, this last quarter was amazing. They blew them away, the earnings were up by 20%. So we know it's strong, but can it stay strong when their key driver, near-term driver, is questionable for now?
Well, that's worrisome. But you're right about the numbers. And those are all pre-trade deal numbers, too. So imagine if a trade deal gets through and looks good, what that could do to some of those EPS numbers, Charles. But I'll tell you, what's interesting, like you were talking about with Aaron, is this is such a big part of Boeing's future business, the 737 MAX. And so now they've got 2 incidents on the docket with respect to this plane. And they aren't dealing with it very well. So as Jeff pointed out, I mean, so many orders that are on order are supposed to come down the line and affect Boeing profit going forward. You figured they'd be ahead of this a little bit better than they are right now.
Yeah, we got Southwest, United Airlines, American Air. In this country, all fly this plane.
Yeah, and, you know, especially if it comes down to a design flaw that is built into the aircraft rather than pilot error, then you really have a substantial problem because all these orders go away, 40%.
Now, on that note, there's a distinct difference, though, between design flaw with the structural, the craft itself, and software issues, right?
Exactly.
Because if it's software, it seems like it could be fixed pretty easily if Boeing would just say, hey, yeah, we messed up. But apparently, you know, there's some talk out there that the pilots are trying to take the plane higher and the software is taking over and nudging it lower. This is the type of tug-of-war you don't want occurring in a cockpit.
And it speaks to confidence because the consumer, the worldwide consumer, flies. And we have to deal with this plane whether we want to or not. And I think Boeing needs to get ahead of that curve.
So the Boeing news comes out, folks, and it seems like the perfect storm because the momentum in the last 2 weeks had certainly on Wall Street shifted to the downside. In fact, last week, the worst session since early March. Market breadth was getting really bad. I mean, you know, more losers, more highs. So, I mean, why now? How should we interpret the fact that this session, the market has really shown, Aaron, to kind of resolve we saw after that Christmas Eve crash where, you know what, buyers just materialized. Why today?
So we talked about this a little bit last week, and I really said that those first couple weeks of March were consolidation. Valuations came back
Classic consolidation.
Valuations came right back to about 16.5 times forward earnings. That actually has been a critical point for the past 3 years of whether it's been resistance or support. And so I think consumers just came in and said, hey, you know what? Even though we're having slower growth at these prices, it's a reasonable place to get in. And do you really want to be out of the market? And so I see this as we're going to have slower growth, and buyers are going to just be a little more sensitive about when they get in.
Tech is crushing it today, and it's not those household names, it's the semiconductors, although we should point out every sector is up. So whether it's, you know, safe haven stuff like utilities, whether it's tech, whether it's consumer discretionary, how do you explain that?
So, well, I explain that as those are the days you got to watch out for. You know, Mama said there's going to be days like that where like everything goes up. Yeah, it's like everything's getting bought today. And plus, sports fans, rates aren't going up. Nobody's selling bonds either. So they're buying bonds to at least holding them in there. I mean, the 10-year note is level today, which is incredible.
Well, given how strong. You don't want to go lower, much lower from here, do you?
Well, it just seems like there should be selling of bonds, though. I mean, if there's so much equity interest, somebody should be dumping bonds today. Nobody is. Gold's kind of flat. So it just seems like a weird day to me. Good point about the SOX index, which had turned over last week and kind of let us down. Transports have bounced some today. Transports turned over 2 weeks ago. This could be a one-day kind of short cover with some of those things because they're bouncing so hard. I'd just watch them in the next couple of days if it were me.
It's just curious that we get it today. Of all days, we could have easily have seen the Dow off 500 points, considering Boeing would have been 300 of them.
Yeah, and I look at this, if we talk to everything we've talked about today, if you go with the emotion, you go with what the world has to have, to me, that's all about the tech today. It's like, hey, we've got to get ahead of this. At some price, our portfolio has to have these names on the list at the end of the quarter.
All right, we're going to pick up on retail sales because I think that's a major driver today and some other news. Aaron, Scott, Keith, thank you all very much.